Lateef Jakande. Born Lateef Kayode Jakande in the Ekpetedo area of Lagos Island, Lagos State on July 1929. He studied at the Lagos Public School at Enuowa, Lagos Island, then at Bonham Memorial Methodist School, Port Harcourt, King's College, enrolled at Ilesha Grammar School, where he edited a literary paper called The Quarterly Mirror. Jakande began a career in journalism in 1949 with a daily service and joined the Nigerian Tribune in 1953. The owner, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, appointed Jakande editor-in-chief of the Tribune in 1956. Jakande established John West Publications in 1975 after leaving Tribune and began to publish the Lagos News. He served as the first president of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, NPAN. Jakande ran for election as executive governor of Lagos State in 1979 on the Unity Party of Nigeria platform. His administration was effective and open and implemented the cardinal policies of his party. He introduced housing and educational programs targeting the poor, building new neighborhood primary and secondary schools, and providing free primary and secondary education. He gave poor people's children education, and many of them are now very prominent in the society today. Jakande established the Lagos State University and constructed over 30,000 housing units. After the military takeover in 1983, Jakande was charged, prosecuted, and convicted of treason and later pardoned. He served as Minister of Works under the Sani Abacha military regime. He died in Lagos on February 11, 2021. Lateef Jakande was the first civilian governor of Lagos State. Lateef Kayode Jakande, SOUQ Enlightenment.
My name is Veronica Nkechi Eze.
Charles Abana.
My name is Professor Martins Emeje.
Professor Sylvester Odion Akaine.
Keep
watching SOUQ
News TV.
The best news channel online.
It's elevating, it's enlightening, it's educating.
Muhammad Ali found this route in Africa. Rumble in the jungle. I swear the king is humble. Jesse Jackson, O.J. Simpson, this is black history. Andrew Young visit Africa in the late 60s. Legend, Bob Marley make the life different. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are big names. They fought for black Americans in the old days. We need the same revolution in our own ways. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Mr. Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre and Eddie Murphy. American prosperity ain't complete with African poverty. It's legendary Idris Abdul Karim, and you are on to SOUQ News. You don't touch that dial.
The National Theatre, Igomu. Built during the military regime of Olusegun Obasanjo and finished in the time for the Second World Festival of Black Arts and Culture, FESTAC, in 1977. The theatre holds amazing treasures and memories. The artworks fill everyone with pride. The National Arts Theatre is visible from the motorway which connects Lagos Island and the mainland. The National Theatre is packed with the artworks of a legendary contemporary Nigerian artist, stained glass walls by Yusuf Grillo, sculptures and murals by Lamidi Fakeye, Erabo Emopai, and many others. It was put to full use for a month as one of the 4 venues of the Second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, tagged FESTAC 77. The complex hosted 16,000 participants from 56 African countries and the diaspora in an unprecedented showcase of African music, fine art, literature, drama, dance, and religion. The National Art Theatre was built and designed by Techno Experts Troll, a Bulgarian company mirroring the Palace of Culture and Sports in Varna, Bulgaria. Completed in 1976, the building is one of the largest and most beautiful of its kind on the African continent. It consists of a central hall with 5,000 seats, a collapsible stage, that can be quickly rebuilt, a conference hall with 1,600 seats, 2 large exhibition halls, and 2 cinemas with 800 seats each. The theater complex has a dressing room for artists, a garage, offices, coffee bars, and a buffet. It has indoor TV and radio systems, as well as booths with facilities for simultaneous translation of languages and hectares of lush green lawn around. The majestic structure sits in Igomu like a quiet mountain, mesmerizing visitors and passers-by. The National Theatre, SOUQ Enlightenment.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development. The National Theatre, Igomu, built during the military regime of Olusegun Obasanjo and finished in the time for the Second World Festival of Black Arts and Culture, FESTAC, in 1977. The theatre holds amazing treasures and memories. The artworks fill everyone with pride. The National Arts Theatre is visible from the motorway which connects Lagos Island and the mainland. The National Theatre is packed with the artworks of a legendary contemporary Nigerian artist, stained glass walls by Yusuf Grillo, sculptures and murals by Lamidi Fakeye, Erabo Emopai, and many others. It was put to full use for a month as one of the 4 venues of the Second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, tagged FESTAC 77. The complex hosted 16,000 participants from 56 African countries and the diaspora in an unprecedented showcase of African music, fine art, literature, drama, dance, and religion. The National Art Theatre was built and designed by Techno Expert Stroll, a Bulgarian company mirroring the Palace of Culture and Sports in Varna, Bulgaria. Completed in 1976, the building is one of the largest and most beautiful of its kind on the African continent. It consists of a central hall with 5,000 seats, a collapsible stage that can be quickly rebuilt, a conference hall with 1,600 seats, 2 large exhibition halls, and 2 cinemas with 800 seats each. The theatre complex has a dressing room for artists, a garage, offices, coffee bars, and a buffet. It has indoor TV and radio systems, as well as booths with facilities for simultaneous translation of languages and hectares of lush green lawn around. The majestic structure sits in Igomu like a quiet mountain, mesmerizing visitors and passers-by. The National Theatre, SOUQ Enlightenment.
Broad Street. Broad Street, situated in Lagos Island, is steeped in Nigerian history.
Once the biggest financial hub of the country, it housed the headquarters of major banks, linked to CBN, the stock exchange, and the loads of lender companies. Broad Street is a historically significant street. It has played a central role in the development of Lagos and history, an important commercial and administrative center for the British colonial authorities. It was also a home to some of the city's earliest modern buildings. Broad Street was a residential area in the pre-colonial era. With the British came the Methodist Boys High School in 1878 and the Broad Street Prison in 1882, renamed Freedom Park. The General Hospital, which was a British military hospital, was built in 1893, being the first general hospital in Nigeria. The old British Secretariat building, which is now the Federal Ministry of Justice, was built in 1906. Broad Street has seen a full turn into modern commercial office blocks, complexes, skyscrapers, and markets from the outer marina through Akpombo early into the Adeniji Adele Road. Broad Street is one of the busiest streets in Nigeria on weekdays, where commercial activities take place day and night. From modern buildings to ancient structures, this street gives one a raw dose of life in Lagos. Broad Street is often referred to as Lagos Financial District. It boasts a mix of architectural styles, reflecting its long history, colonial-era buildings, Victorian and Edwardian architectural features, alongside more modern skyscrapers and structures. Broad Street remains a vital, vibrant part of the Nigerian economy. Broad Street. SOUQ Enlightenment.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development with our conversation. Today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, according to Pastor here, the greatest gift of Easter is hope. Hope has been restored to mankind. No more are we condemned, for we have been saved by grace. It is Easter Monday, and Christians all over the world are joyful because Christ is risen. And I know that you're happy to be watching Early Exchange this morning. It's a special Easter edition. I am Blessing Aiche, and my twin on the show is here, Femi Ayodele. Good morning, Femi.
Good morning. Happy Easter.
I wish you so.
You know, one significant thing about Easter is, you know, it's a time to celebrate. Even my outfit, you know, someone says...
Oh, yes, even though I suspect what you want to do after the show.
You know, I had to look like this to show that I'm celebrating. We're celebrating, you know, it's about resurrection.
You really look it.
Yeah, great. Glad to have you join us. It's the special edition of Easter Special on Early Exchange. Today is a special day, a day after resurrection, in which our Lord Jesus Christ said we should meet him at the Galilee. So today, our own Galilee is Early Exchange. Here is where we're going to have all the conversation. We're going to have conversation as regards how we can take advantage of this period to sue for peace globally. The world needs peace. We'll make reference in the course of our conversation. We'll make reference to the ongoing crisis in Gaza. We'll also make reference to the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. And we hope that the world will witness peace as is a significant time to talk about it. Don't forget, you can be part of this conversation. All you just have to do is to go on our social media platform and on our YouTube page to share your view. Now we'll go on a short break now. When we return, the news update will come your way. Stay with us.
My name is Yinka Babalola.
My name is Ijoma Pelokoro.
My name is Joshua Hassan.
I am Rotarian or Mosunde Lawson. It's Ife Yunwarita Ejeze. My friends call me Ife.
My name is Rotarian Lola Dare.
I'm inviting you to keep watching SOUQ News. It's the right station to tune to.
I like SOUQ News. SOUQ News is good.
I want to charge you all to listen to SOUQ News, watch the news. You can have unlimited news, first time.
Find SOUQ News. Be with SOUQ News. Never switch off. You are better for it. SOUQ News is the real thing.
Listen to their coverage and you'll be glad you did.
Turn to your YouTube, turn to your Instagram, turn to all your digital channels and look for SOUQ News.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Please, guys, keep watching
SOUQ News.
The Three Wise Men. Iconic sculptures and statues adorn major metropolitan cities of the world. In Lagos, Nigeria, the statue of three men designed to depict the state's cultural heritage and to usher in visitors and tourists into the ever-accommodating center of excellence is no doubt an astounding work of art. Originally built under the administration of Colonel Raji Rasaki, designed by Bodun Shodende in 1991 and standing over 12 feet high, referred to as Agba Meta or Aro Meta, the three sculptured chiefs were placed along the Lagos-Ibadan toll gate to welcome people coming into Lagos State. The statue called the Three Wise Men by many has become a major signature for the state. Three white-capped chiefs clad in white wrappers, knotted across their shoulders and with clenched right fists are shown in the artwork. The images fascinate and create impressions in the minds of visitors coming into the state, captivating the attention of visitors who look with keen interest, pondering on the messages which the posture of the engraved images signifies. The Three Wise Men has been relocated thrice from its original position at Ojodu Berger end of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to Magodo area before its final relocation to its present site at Olowopopo Drive. The sculpture has suffered severe damages over the years and renovated. Bodun Shodende, through this sculpture, depicted the highest honor that can be afforded to anyone in the Eko greeting tradition. The Three Wise Men, Arometa, SOUQ Enlightenment. Idumota Market. Eko Idumota, once a residential neighborhood, is home to Idumota Market located on Lagos Island. It is one of the oldest and arguably one of the largest markets in West Africa. Idumota is a historic neighborhood adjacent to the Lagos port that facilitated the slave trade, and later under the British indirect rule, it surrounded to exports that fueled the colonial enterprise. Idumota was also the location of an armed forces remembrance cenotaph called Soja Idumota, built as a monument to Nigerian soldiers who served with the West African Frontier Force. An Eyo Masquerade statue and a clock tower are also some monuments at Idumota. Idumota Market is so popular that large sales are recorded as early as 7 a.m. The market is made up of hundreds of locked-up shops occupying several multi-story buildings, with some measuring about 5 or more floors. In 2010, the Lagos State government demolished some illegal structures in order to improve vehicular and human movement in and around the markets. During weekdays, the neighborhood of Idumota is densely populated by shoppers, traders, and bus passengers. From the Carter Bridge, ascending into Lagos Island, passengers can see the neighborhood before disembarking at their final destination. Idumota market accommodates the substantial inflow of imported goods. The bulk of import from abroad are routed first through Idumota and then on to other markets through Nigeria and other West and Central African countries. The energy of private Idumota traders and wholesalers facilitate this activity, where millions of US dollars worth of wholesale is exchanged daily. Idumota Markets, SOUQ Enlightenment.
Hello, welcome to News Update on SOUQ News. Hope you're having a lovely Easter. I am Ikenna Mba. Nigerian governors and senators in Easter message delivery have urged citizens to stay hopeful despite ongoing economic challenges, expressing confidence that reforms by President Bola Tinubu, including ending fuel subsidies and unifying the exchange rate, would lead to a future prosperity. Leaders like Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum called for prayers for President Tinubu's success, while others like Akwa Ibom Governor Umo Uneno emphasized overcoming current hardships like a period of trial and tribulation. Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun echoed the sentiments of national unity and faith in leadership. Lagos Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu pointed to recent progress, highlighting the strengthening Naira as a sign that hardship would soon end. He advised Lagosians to be Christ-like by reducing the cost of commodities in response to the improving economic outlook. Away from that, the Lagos state government is working on improving water transportation by making it safer, more efficient, and a more attractive option for commuters. This was announced by the Lagos State Commissioner for Transportation, Oluwaseun Osiyemi, during a recent visit to the Lagos State Waterways Monitoring and Data Management Center Control Room. The government plans to implement various strategies to achieve this goal. One key area of focus is improving safety on the waterways. The Lagos State Waterways Authority, LASWA, has a control room specifically designed to manage traffic and ensure safety. The Lagos government is also investing in new locally made ferries. These ferries are built to meet international standards and are expected to be more affordable and efficient than imported options. This initiative comes after reports indicated that a significant portion of the current boats operating on Lagos waterways are not seaworthy. Nigeria's Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Lagbaja, have reassured citizens of the military's commitment to ending terrorism and banditry. He emphasized the Army's recent successes in operations like Hardin Kai and pledged continued focus on national security. Lagbaja highlighted efforts to improve soldier training and resources, prioritizing their well-being as they fight for peace. Lagbaja urged Army personnel to utilize the Easter season for prayer against forces hindering Nigeria's progress. He hopes the spiritual reflection will inspire soldiers with renewed dedication to their duty. Away from Nigeria, Chinese stocks rose on Monday after data showed a slight improvement in manufacturing activity. The official Purchasing Managers Index PMI climbed to 50.8, indicating expansion for the first time in 3 months. The Caixin PMI, a private survey, also signaled growth. China's CSI 300 index responded positively, gaining about 1.6%. Meanwhile, Japanese markets presented a different picture. Business sentiments among large manufacturers dipped slightly, according to the Tankan survey, a key indicator for the Bank of Japan. This, along with the absence of trading in key markets like Australia and Hong Kong due to Easter Monday, contributed to a decline in Japan's Nikkei 225 by 1.4%. The broader Topics index also fell by 1.9%. Lastly, in sports, NC State, North Carolina State, is heading to the Final Four for the first time in 40 years. The Wolfpack, led by a dominant performance by DJ Burns, 29 points, and DJ Horn, 20 points per game, defeated ACC rival Duke, 76-64 in the South Regional Final. This victory marks a remarkable turnaround for North Carolina State, who had lost their last 4 regular season games. Coach Kevin Keats' team, battled through adversity, winning 5 games in 5 days during the ACC tournament to even qualify for the NCAA tournament. Their resilience continued in the big dance, culminating in this upset win over Duke. The Wolfpack, despite having the most losses ever for a Final Four team, 26-14, are riding a hot streak and ready to make noise on the biggest stage. Their journey to Glendale, Arizona is a testament to perseverance and clutch play. That would be all for now on News Updates. Thanks for watching. I am Ike Namba. Continue to have a lovely Easter.
Wise men. Iconic sculptures and statues adorn major metropolitan cities of the world. In Lagos, Nigeria, the statue of 3 men designed to depict the state's cultural heritage and to usher in visitors and tourists into the ever-accommodating center of excellence is no doubt an astounding work of art. Originally built under the administration of Colonel Raji Rasaki, designed by Bodun Shodende in 1991 and standing over 12 feet high, referred to as Agba Meta or Aro Meta, the 3 sculptured chiefs were placed along the Lagos-Ibadan toll gate to welcome people coming into Lagos State. The statue called the 3 Wise Men by many has become a major signature for the state. 3 white-capped chiefs clad in white wrappers knotted across their shoulders and with clenched right fists are shown in the artwork. The images fascinate and create impressions in the minds of visitors coming into the state, captivating the attention of visitors who look with keen interest, pondering on the messages which the posture of the engraved images signifies. The 3 Wise Men has been relocated thrice from its original position at Ojodu Berger end of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to Magodo area before its final relocation to its present site at Olowopopo Drive. The sculpture has suffered severe damages over the years and renovated. Bodun Shodende, through this sculpture, depicted the highest honor that can be afforded to anyone in the Echo greeting tradition. The 3 Wise Men, Arometa, SOUQ Enlightenment.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This early exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the early exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development with our conversation. Today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, thank you, Kena, for the news update, giving us the latest development as regards a special day like this. It's still Easter special on Early Exchange. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, we'll commence our conversation as regards the significance of Easter and making use of a period like this to seek to make advocacy for global peace. Stay with us.
My name is Yinka Babalola.
My name is Ijoma Pelokoro.
My name is Joshua Hassan.
I am Rotarian or Mosunde Lawson. It's Ife Yonwarita Ejeze. My friends call me Ife.
My name is Rosemary Dare.
I'm inviting you to keep watching SOUQ News. It's the right station to tune to.
I like SOUQ News. SOUQ News is good.
I want to charge you all to listen to SOUQ News, watch the news. You can have unlimited news first time.
Find SOUQ News. Be with SOUQ News. Never switch off. You are better for it. SOUQ News is the real thing.
Listen to their coverage and you'll be glad you did.
Turn to your YouTube, turn to your Instagram, turn to all your digital channels and look for SOUQ News.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Please, guys, keep watching
SOUQ News.
This early exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, it's still Easter special. Let's start our conversation with our global update. We'll start from Gaza, looking at the latest development as regards the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas and how to take advantage of this season to draw advocacy for peace. You know, the world needs peace. According to Pope Francis, when he was delivering his Easter message yesterday, he said that war is an absurdity and there's a need for the world to embrace peace. To shed more light on this, we have been joined by our analyst. We have Dr. Idauza Samaze, who joins us all the way from Morocco. Glad you have you join us. Happy.
Good morning, Femi. I am not joining from Morocco. I'm actually joining from Lagos.
Great, great. Glad to know you're back.
Yes.
Mr. Dr. Osamaze. All right, so let's start the conversation by looking at the sensitivity of a period like this. I'm going to start with the Easter message delivered by Pope Francis, where he called for peace. He said, war is an absurdity. Now, at a time like this that we're looking at the significance of Easter celebration, which is love and the sacrifice of our Savior, how do you make or utilize this period to sue for peace globally? And what should be the narrative looking at the latest trend in Gaza, the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas?
Well, for me, it's quite unfortunate that we are celebrating a season like Easter, and so many people has actually lost the sense of the meaning of what Easter means to us, especially to the Christian faithful. And part of the challenge that the globe is facing today is actually this missing link between the ceremony of Easter and what Easter actually represents. And I think that is what the Pope Francis tried to also speak to, which is, of course, embracing the Prince of Peace, who actually gave himself to save the world from crisis, to save the world from sin, and from every unrighteousness. And in the list of the world, every act of war is a product of sin and unrighteousness. And that is actually what Jesus came to save the world from. And until the world embraces the Prince of Peace, it will be very, very difficult for the world to find peace.
All right, even as it is Easter season, but there is still war ongoing between Israel and Hamas. So the negotiators between Israel and Hamas have tried to bring them to the table. But Israel is negotiating the release of some of the hostages held by Hamas. And the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has said that force and, of course, talks will be applied in order to get this. But in the meantime, Hamas has refused to come to the table, waiting for a new deal offered by Israel. How do you see this playing out at the end of the day? Do you foresee a situation where the talks for peace does not hold and then the war continues to escalate?
Well, I think the biggest problem here really is the fact that the hypocrisies that we find in the global space today. And I think that is the real problem in Israel, why we have not been able to actually get to the root and the heart of peace in that region in Palestine. Now, we need to look at the origin and of this crisis. Hamas breaking through the border to kill about 1,200 Israelis and hold about 250 of them hostage without any provocation. And now Israel is responding and the world is crying and say, oh, they want to wipe out the Palestinians. This is the real problem because, like they say, when there is injustice anywhere, it becomes a threat to justice everywhere. But it's not to say that these things cannot be ended. The hostility from these terrorists, the world must come together and agree to put an end to terrorism. And I know that this is possible. All these deviant elements that are creating crises all across the globe and making the globe very, very difficult for people to live in, we must put aside the sentiment of religion, put aside sentiments of ethnicity and race, and deal with this issue frontally and flush out these evil elements that is creating so much unhappiness and hatred around it.
In the course of this war, several civilian casualties have been recorded. And when it's a situation when two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. Now, how will you assess the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and what should be done to ensure that this crisis is being minimized, if not totally eradicated, now that the world is calling for help and Gaza is also in their need of humanitarian assistance?
Yeah, but that is what I'm saying. It's important that while we are also looking at pushing peace, it should not be peace at all costs, that you are having criminal elements using human beings, innocent human beings as human shield, and then causing evil. And then, of course, they now begin to appeal to the sense of emotion that human beings are being killed. This also requires that even the people in the Gaza Strip who are not part of this terrorist gang must be able to expose these people and not allow them to use them as shield, because this is fundamental. These people are living among them and they know who they are. And I think that is where the real issues are, that the whole world must come together and every people must understand that when wars come, of course, therefore, you must have casualties. And that is what you're seeing right now. Now, Israel has opened some frontiers for humanitarian aids to come. Yeah, but that will not end until justice is meted out. And that is to say, those terrorist elements release those hostages that are being held, and then let that region know peace for good.
So for Israel and for Qatar and Egypt mediating peace between Israel and Gaza, what do you think they should do at this point in time where neither party seems to be giving conditions necessary for the peace to happen?
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make. You see, for you to get to the root of this peace, you can't just call people to table and say you want to negotiate. What are you negotiating? Allow Israel, who has lost some people, and then having their citizen held hostage, to just forget those 250 people, and then, of course, come to table and say, okay, there's no more. So what is the real reason? Why did the reprisal attack came? The reprisal attack came because these people came without provocation, broke through the borders, killed some people, and took some people hostage. So the beginning of peace actually could be that these mediators should find a way to prevail on the Hamas to release the hostages that they are holding. And that is the shortest route to peace.
You know, it's a special day. Christians all over the world are celebrating the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. Just like Pope Francis has set the pace. What will you expect religious leaders to do at a time like this? And the concern is, will their advocacy make any relevance on the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas, and looking at the situation in Gaza? Is there anything religious leaders can do at a special day like this, at a special season like this, to help the situation over there?
A while ago, while ministering in our church here, I gave the indication that it is unfortunate that we celebrate so much of Easter, but we lose the meaning of the concept of Easter, which is, of course, Christ coming humbly to take the form of man so that he can save man from sin, from unrighteousness. Now, when you look at the tenets of all religions across the globe, whether it is Islam, whether it's Christianity, whether it is Buddhism, whether it's Hinduism, or African traditional religion, every religion in the world preaches peace. Now, if we are living in a world that is bereft of so much peace, it does say that the religions of the world has actually failed to live out their tenet. And I think these are the crises that we have to really confront. So for me, I think it's a time for religious leaders to actually reinvent themselves and ensure that we can actually preach peace, which is the real fulcrum that holds these religions in place. So if the leaders are not able to preach and promote peace, then something definitely is wrong. Because you see, all across the globe, all these people that are fighting this war, they are called religious extremists. And they are having people and leaders behind them who are urging on to continue to kill against the tenets of their faith. And I think this is where we need to really see how the religious leaders all across the globe, whether they are Christians, whether they are Muslim, Hindus, or Buddhists, should live by the tenet of the religion and let people really get to that point of conversion, of accepting religion, which is a matter of faith, to believe what the religion offers, that killing is anathema to all the religion in the world, even including Islam.
Now, if we go over to Russia and Ukraine, where there's another war ongoing, which has been for about 2 years, we'll find a similar situation where neither party wants really to present what is needed for the end of the war. Instead, in the case of Russia and Ukraine, we have Russia calling for extradition of Ukraine's security heads. What do you make of the situation?
Well, the situation in Russia and Ukraine today is actually getting worse and worse by the day, and this is because I said some time ago in the studio that because the big brothers have refused to play the big brother role to actually bring peace to that region. What we see playing out today is the fact that the play of ego from both ends. And recently you saw the terrorist attack on Russia. And now Russia is calling that the leader of those attacks be surrendered. And of course, you know, they're in a state of war. There's no way Ukraine is going to surrender this. And what is left for Russia is either to use force to get these things out. And I think to that extent, I agree with Donald Trump in one of his recent interview with Tucker Carlson, where he says that the greatest threat in the world today is actually not the threat of climate change, it's actually the threat of the nuclear war, which is brewing and is looming very large. And the world need to really understand that this can happen. And because like Donald Trump says, Russia has the capacity, and so many countries like China also has capacity to actually leverage the world. And third world war can be something that will be catastrophic. And I feel that world leaders should come together and not take side in the issues between Russia and Ukraine, and see how permanent peace can come to that region also.
Now, on Sunday, the Israeli Prime Minister insisted that he's going to maintain military pressure on Hamas while being open to talks and all that. How will you describe these tactics on the part of the Israeli Prime Minister is it counterproductive, or do you think it's also going to help the situation now that war leaders are calling for ceasefire?
You know, the last time we were having this same conversation on the show, and I said to you, assuming you have two children that are fighting, the younger and the older seems to have more strength, will you allow the older to fold hand, then allow a knife in the hand of the younger? Because that's not the sure way to peace. And I think that's what Netanyahu is saying. If the Hamas are not accepting peace terms and they don't want to come to the table for negotiation, and then you are asking Israel to drop arms, it becomes very, very difficult. Yeah, because in international relations, self-defense is a principle that is held by the whole world. So if you say, oh, drop warfare, and these other parties are not dropping, they are doing damage and danger to you, that becomes really very critical. And that is why I'm saying, really, the problem here is really not Israel, so to speak. The problem is actually the fact that the world is saying, because there's so much casualty on the side of the Hamas, and say, oh, Israel, stop. So, but the real people who are the perpetrator, nobody seems to be having a hold on them or control over what they do or how they respond. So this is the challenge. So Israel had to be on its guard while also expecting that peace prevails soon.
On the issue of Russia requesting for extradition of Ukraine's security service chief, now, for some of the issues that have been raised, do you see where the International Crime Court would be holding some countries, regardless of the war ongoing, to account for some of the things that have been perpetrated in the course of war?
Well, I don't think the International Court of Justice, which of course is an arm of the United Nations, would really have so much to do with this particular issue, except that you have changed the government in Russia, for example, and maybe a more liberal and moderate leader coming to Russia and not Putin. Then, of course, you'll be thinking that, okay, he may surrender Putin to be arrested, to be tried where. So that's the real issue. So you see, you are dealing with what power? So what is here is the fact that this will happen, and because it's happening here between great powers, so consequences may be low, except that they are conquered. Now, conquering Russia is what, of course, we have to look at, and that is the only way you can be looking at ICJ having the kind of effrontery to say they want to summon Putin or whoever for a war crime. Now, what also this means is the fact that, you see, because the war between Russia and Ukraine is between two unequals. And I know that Russia should have expected that these kind of things will happen. Because if I don't have the strength and the mind to confront you in a face-to-face military battle, I can also use other means. So, and that's why terrorism is usually referred to in science of warfare as asymmetrical, because you really don't know where the enemies are hiding, and they're looking at a way to see how to pull down your strength, and then, of course, deliver their people from the grip of war. So for me, I think that that call by Putin is not something that is feasible, and it's not something that Ukraine will readily and willingly do because of the level of damage too that Russia has caused in the Ukraine. Yeah, but also it's both parties must begin to look out for ways to global peace. And the issue here, they are also very, very straightforward. And this is where, of course, we really need to call on NATO to see and prevail on these issues. And that simple step to peace will just be fine. No need to fly egg. Yes, we know that Ukraine is a sovereign nation. He wants to join NATO. And of course, because of the situation in that terrain, Russia is resisting that attempt for Ukraine to join. So I think what NATO should do, or NATO nations should do, is to actually say, step down these issues and let's get to harmonize and a level of peace and negotiation. Then, of course, if it becomes expedient and necessary, then you can begin to talk about that alliance between Russia and Ukraine. Of course, in the US also, you had those issues during the Cold War of Russia trying to penetrate some South American countries to be able to have an eye on what America is doing. But of course, we saw America also resisted. But this really didn't lead to any form of war. And that's where we really need to see how we can talk about peace, especially using the occasion of Easter and then the celebration of the sacrifice of the great prophet Muhammad that is on his way.
Earlier, you talked about the possibility of a third world war brewing, and Vladimir Putin has occasionally threatened the use of nuclear weapons. But do you see it as a threat, knowing very well that Russia too would also be hit with the consequences of using nuclear weapon?
Well, I don't see it as a threat. You see, it's not a mere threat. It's something that the world needs to take very seriously. And I think that is the point that Donald Trump was making in that interview that he gave, and that it is necessary for us to handle this thing with care before it blows into full-scale war. If history is anything to go by, you remember when, of course, American had made the hydrogen bomb in 1946-48, and the Second World War was ongoing. When the Pearl Harbor was attacked by the enemy forces, America had no option but to use the hydrogen bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima that brought that war to an end. And the consequences of those wars, even to today in the region of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, is still being felt, even for children that have been born today because of the destruction that came upon that city. So I don't want the world to see this as a threat, because it's already well established that Russia has the nuclear capability. And if they are pushed to the wall by the West, they may not have another option but to use what they have to defend themselves. But that will create a situation that is called international relations mutual assured destruction, and that will not be good for the globe.
Now, let's talk about global terrorism and the dimension it has added to the war. You're aware of the recent mass shooting that happened in Russia, where about 144 people died. And then IC has also claimed responsibility for that attack. Don't you think that this is also adding another dimension to the ongoing war, making it complicated? And then what should be the way forward when it comes to tackling global terrorism?
The only alternative to war is peace. And that is what it is. And that is the point I made earlier. This is an asymmetrical war. And in asymmetrical war, you are not having two sides that is equal in strength fighting. All you have is one side that has no. What the weaker part does is to see how they can hide and attack you from the behind and cause some casualty and strike fears and terror in your heart. That's why it's called terrorism. So what these people are doing is to tell Russia that, oh, we are strong and we have a network, we have collaborations, and this is the real issues. And what this will mean is that if Russia insists that these people are not surrendered, you see, it is possible for Russia to actually be able to tell by satellite and all their technology where these people actually live. And if they are living in the midst of people, God forbid, you see a reprisal attack coming from Russia, and that could be very, very devastating for the whole of Ukraine. So these are issues that why, of course, for me, negotiating peace at this point is the real answer to the warfare that is ongoing and raging across the globe. We must find, the world must find a way to nip in the bud these terrorist threats globally. There are some leaders across the globe who are funding and empowering terrorists for obvious reasons. And these people, the world should really look at them and see how to put an end to terrorism, because it's not good for anybody. And I don't think the world is even enjoying it as it is right now.
On using the period of Easter to pursue global peace after this break.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
It's good to know you're still with us on Easter Special on Early Exchange, and we're looking at the period of Easter. Easter brings hope to mankind and it preaches peace as well. So how can the world use this period to pursue peace? Yes, there are wars in some areas of the world, but can it come to an end? We've been talking with Dausa Osamanze, who is Director, Research, Policy and Development, African Development Studies Center, and of course, in-house analyst at SOUQ News. Before we rejoin him, I need to speak with Femi on this. Now, to the extent that the word has gone, the areas where there are war, talking about Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Hamas, and even Yemen, do you think it has gotten to a point of no return regarding peace?
Well, before I answer your question, let me make reference to what Pope Francis said about this. He says, call on the world to resist the logic of weapons and embrace peace. You know, it's always easier to say you want to start a war. That's why I love the choice of word, to resist the use of weapons. You have to resist. There's always that urge to start a war, to start a battle. In fact, if as human beings you have reasons for whatever you want to do, there are millions of reasons why you think you need to fight a battle or you need to go into war. But you also count the cost, because for every action there are responsibilities. Now, if you look at what is going on between Israel and Hamas, you know, of course the casualties are beyond irreparable now, because it's gotten to a level where the issue is getting complicated now. To now say, okay, that's why everybody's calling for peace, you know, because it's easier to start a war, but to manage it, to finish it, is always very complicated. Now, on the other hand, Israel, the Prime Minister has vowed that it's going to mount military pressure on Hamas in the name that they want to free the hostages. The other angle too has its own narrative saying, okay, they need to also protect their own sovereignty and also make a statement as regards the sovereignty of their nation. And now you have two parties who are fighting, just like you say that when two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. And you look at those who are suffering, and they are civilians, children, women. You know, in the convention, when it comes, the normal convention, when it comes to war, is to ensure that civilians like children and women are protected. But in this situation, it's an absurd situation where nobody is left out. And it's so becoming chaotic that even the world can't even have control over it. You have Netanyahu who has insisted that he's going on with the war to make a statement, and you have the other party who say, okay, they're not going to surrender, using civilians as body shields or hosting them as hostages to ensure that they make a narrative as regards the war. So it's usually easier to start a war, but to control it. That's why I love...
Or even to end it.
You know, it's a challenge. That's why I love what Pope Francis said. He said, you should resist the logic of weapons and embrace peace.
All right, we have Idelsa Osamanze back with us. It's easier to prevent war from happening than actually control it when it does happen. So far, there have been casualties on both sides, whichever country is fighting, whether it's for Ukraine or Russia, or for Hamas or Israel. At this point in time, do you see it as it has gone too far? The point of it's gotten to the point of no return.
Well, it's huge. no thanks to the invention of guns, gunpowder. Now we have atomic bomb, talking about hydrogen bomb and nuclear facilities are built all across the globe. This is what the human intelligence has brought us, and it's come with a whole lot of its trouble which the world currently face. And as long as globally people continue to produce this weapon of mass destruction, then of course an end may not necessarily be in sight. People who have tasted war don't want to get off it, especially understanding that they are protected, and then those who are dying really are not their relative, and their children don't fight in those wars. And this is where, for me, that we need to get to that point, like Thomas Hobbes called it, in the state of nature, where life was short brutish because of the competitions and the competitiveness of the human race at that time. And then they came to a reasoned consideration, and then the state was established to mediate between these individuals who were at each other's neck. I think that point is where we should get to at this point. People need to be more intelligent. We need a lot of education, especially for young people who are coming up, to tell them the terribleness of what war is like. And I think one example that the world can actually borrow a leaf from is what Paul Kagame has been able to do with the Rwanda Memorial, where, of course, every year people are made to look at what actually happened in the war situation, the number of people that died, and then, of course, to use the opportunity to preach a global peace. And I think those are the kind of things that the world needs at this point. We need to talk more peace and at war. And then, of course, those things that are aiding war, we must find a way to put an end to it, and maybe delegitimize them if it is possible. And then, of course, we can be able to interact and interface. Yeah, but fundamentally speaking, the biggest challenge here is the problem of justice. And where there is no justice, you cannot talk about peace.
All right, looking at the latest development, the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas, Russia and Ukraine, you talk about the one in Yemen as well, and, talk about pockets of crisis across the world. What are the lessons for world leaders, looking at the absurdity that this has brought to the whole world? What are some of the lessons for world leaders and nations need to imbibe? Looking at the development and what has happened with these wars ongoing, what should be the narrative for world leaders and lessons for nations across the globe?
Well, I think for me, the leaders all across the globe should understand, number one, that there's a extent to which that you can push even a goat, that if you push a goat and it gets to the wall, likely it will be forced to bite, even if it naturally will not bite. That is to say that every leader that is elected, whichever country, should also realize the need to cater for the interest of all. And that is very fundamental. And this is where the whole idea of crisis and conflict is all originating from. When you have leadership who are not taking everybody as one, and then you are ruling for the interest of your own little group. Yes, we know politics is about interest, but we think that that interest must not be overstretched to the advantage of those who are in the margin or in the minorities. So we must use power responsibly. We must use our words responsibly. We must use our knowledge responsibly, in such a way that we also have to make room for those who have no power, those who have no wealth, and those who have no knowledge.
Quickly, let's go over to Yemen, where the Yemen's Houthi militia have issued 100 riyal coins in replacement of the 100 riyal banknotes, which is worn out. Now, what do you think will be the implication of this on the economy and even on the ongoing civil war in Yemen?
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to play out, really. Who is going to use the coin? you know, when an opposition leader is producing his own money, how acceptable that would be to the generality of people will just be unthinkable, really. But I think, yeah, what it is the fact that it will only instigate more hostility, as, of course, the legitimate leaders are saying that, of course, this is actually an affront and they will go ahead to fight it. So it will only worsen the situation in Yemen as it is at the moment. And I think it's not different from what other things that people are talking about, to seek how to come to the round table to judge rather than war. So I think that is where I would want to put it. So the effort to establish a new state within the Yemen state, or to take over what the original state is, the struggle for legitimacy is the real problem here. And that is the real issue and the major cause of war across the globe, struggle for legitimacy. So let's see how we can allow natural order to take its course, so that people take power legitimately. And when those powers are acquired, they are also used responsibly for the good of all.
Before now, the militia group, you know, they've been holding people hostages, you know, holding the economy to ransom. But what we wonder, why will they have this kind of audacity, you know, to issue currency? What does that suggest to you about the sensitivity and the dimension this crisis is going in Yemen?
That is a point I have talked about earlier, why this conversation started, about the hypocrisy across the globe. You see, some of these people you call terrorists, or you call militias, they are having backing from national governments across the world. And I think this is where the real issues are, because you see that once there's a crisis in a particular state or country, you see the world gravitating at both sides. Some are joining the power in place, some are joining the militias, and then, of course, you see again a bipolar arrangement coming together in that place. But like you said earlier, when the elephants fight, the grass pay the ultimate price. So this is the issue. So the audacity is not coming from within. The audacity is coming from those who are funded there from the outside, who are determined to destabilize Yemen for whatever reason they have in their heart, to ensure that that nation no peace. But I also feel that the people of Yemen themselves should come to realization and look out for ways to see that, yes, the world may be supporting you from both sides to see that you conquer the other, but ultimately it is the people of Yemen that are suffering, and it is that economy that is actually under stress.
Talking about the people of Yemen, at this point, what should be their role or responsibility? You have a legitimately recognized government, and you have, so to speak, a rebel government now issuing currency. What should be their role in accepting and using the currency?
Well, of course, definitely, there's no way, like I said, it's unthinkable for the militia to think that that currency will circulate. The official currency will still be circulating. They could be using that within themselves. How much they can trade with themselves is a different ballgame. And I think the printing is actually just symbolic of the fact that they have earned their freedom. To what extent they can use those currency to trade, or the coin to trade, is a different ballgame altogether. And that also will determine the extent of the territory to which they have control over. So if they don't have control over the entire Yemen state, and the legitimate government still have control, those coins may not be used as, they may not qualify as legal tender, as it were. So it's just a demonstration of the fact to say that, yes, we are itching toward our independence. Now you are having a currency with a different coat of arms, and the rest of it is to see that the liberation struggle is going. So it's like saying no retreat, no surrender.
Thank you so much, Delso Samanze, for your time with us on the show today. We hope that you have a splendid Easter celebration. I have no doubt that has begun already, but we'll ask that you continue.
Thank you so very much, Blessing.
All right, Femi. You've heard all that those Samaze has said. Now, the issue of the Yemen Houthis just kind of surprised me. It seemed like the best way to annoy your enemy.
You know, it's a complicated situation. You have a militia group who has been emboldened over the years, and then because they've done it severally, and like I always say, there's always this dimension to terrorism to make a statement, to create a sense of belonging, to ensure that they hold the state to ransom, whereby that would be a ground for them to negotiate or to be relevant when it comes to state affairs. That's exactly what this militia group has been doing. Before now, what they do is to hold people hostages, prevent people from importing, you know, some economic activities, kidnapping, attacks here and there. But now they've been emboldened to even issue 100 currency coin. You know, the conventional one is the 100 naira coin. But now, I mean,
the real.
The real. Now, but they've decided to issue their own currency to show relevance and to further divide the economic situation in Yemen. And what that suggests to you is that if this is not curtailed, they might go for, in fact, they are threatening to go further to issue more currencies. So what it means is they are further causing division in that country, and the citizens are left in a situation, okay, who are we to obey? Who is calling the shot? And the CBN also need to sit up to ensure that certain things are done to orientate the people, because you always have this dimension to terrorism. You have sympathy on the part of some people, because these people live in that community, they live in that society. There are people who know them, there are people who are familiar with their activities, and as a result of that, they seem to have sympathy for them. Just like what happened with Boko Haram in Nigeria. There are people who are Boko Haram sympathizers, not because they are outrightly part of their activities, but because they have this perception or this false impression that they are people, they are fighting for our own interests. So there you will have that group of persons or group of people who have that kind of facade, that kind of false belief that these people, they are own, they are supporting our own. So it's important for the government of that nation to sit up. What that means is they are getting more emboldened, more, you know, the audacity to face the state, to hold the state to ransom. And trust me, terrorists will always go further. Once they test the water and they discover that it's giving them results, they will go further to launch more attack to see what they can do. Now, in this dimension, it's creating the economic divide in that nation, whereby even as business owners, those who have legitimate reasons to do businesses, they are confused, they are in a state of confusion. They don't know what might likely happen. And so it's a time for the state itself to prove that, okay, they are in track, they have the power. You have to make use of the state machinery. You have the state resources at your disposal. And that's why courage is needed at this time. The willpower is needed. Well, you might say, okay, will a military option be a tool? Yes, it might likely work. But it's also, I like what the Israeli Prime Minister said.
The use of force and talk.
And talk. You have to deploy all you have, put all you have on the table to ensure that nothing is left undone. So any opportunity for you that's available, you utilize it. So it's a very complicated dimension. It's becoming chaotic, and that's why world leaders are calling for it. It's better not started in the first place, because once you start, it gets complicated and you don't even know where you can stop. And in this situation, because this militia group, they are used to collecting ransom, they are making money. They are in their own perception, they feel they are also making some gains from this. So for them to stop, it will be a difficult thing, because they are smiling to the banks as well. They are earning livings, and them, but even doing in an illegitimate way, but they'll have grounds to say, okay, they want to continue in this life. So it's difficult to somehow to see this kind of situation and then you keep quiet. So that's why even the citizens as well, they have roles to play to ensure that they give the government the necessary support. It's also important to provide what you call native intelligence, because these people live in those communities. Just like when Nigeria had the situation of Boko Haram at a point, you have civilian JTF who were volunteers, who were giving information to the military, telling people about the activities of these people, and if possible, sometimes provide information that could lead to the arrest of those people. So the citizens need to wake up. They have this responsibility to the state, that loyalty, that patriotism, to show that, yes, we are part of this war, and we need to play our part to ensure that this war is ended and the world embrace peace, even critically at a time like this.
I agree with you that it's time for the legitimately recognized government to show itself strong, because, hey, for any other group to be able to issue currency in a state, that's the height of it. And it depends on how much of hold they have in certain areas where they've been able to establish hold. There, of course, you would have them use the currency. It may not be up to the people ultimately as to whether to use the currency. They may be forced to, but it then depends on how much the government can ensure that the use of that currency does not see the light of day. Now, this may come as a boost or increasing the tensions around that area, but it may be just for a time to ensure that they quell that force that is rising from the opposition. And at this point in time, it also depends on the support they get from the international community. Now, if you have sides who are sympathetic to the rebel group, you may have them strengthened more, and that would not be good for Yemen. So I join you in the call, and we also join the Pope in the call for global peace. Using the period of Easter is not just enough to wine and dine, but it is to ensure that at every corners where there is unrest, where there is war, that which can be done to bring peace. I don't believe that it's gotten to the point of no return. It can still happen. Now, each side may not have everything that they want in terms of the demands that they've put forward and say this must be met. Israel may not have everything met. Gaza may not have everything met, but at some point, the war just needs to stop. So everyone can count the losses at this point in time, because going forward, more losses will be suffered. We do not hope it gets to that point. We'll take a break, and the conversation on Early Exchange continues after this time.
My name is Veronica Nkechi Eze.
Charles Abana.
My name is Professor Martins Emeje.
Professor Sylvester Odion Akaine.
Keep
watching
SOUQ News TV,
the best news channel online.
It's elevating, it's enlightening, it's educating.
Muhammad Ali found his root in Africa. Rumble in the jungle. I swear the king is humble. Jesse Jackson, O.J. Simpson, this is black history. Andrew Young visit Africa in the late 60s. Legend, Bob Marley make the light different. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are big names. They fought for black Americans in the old days. We need same revolution in our own ways. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Mr. Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre and Eddie Murphy. American prosperity ain't complete with African poverty. It's legendary Idris Abdul Karim, and you are on to SOUQ News. You don't touch that dial.
Idumota Market. Eko Idumota, once a residential neighborhood, is home to Idumota Market, located on Lagos Island. It is one of the oldest and arguably one of the largest markets in West Africa. Idumota is a historic neighborhood adjacent to the Lagos port that facilitated the slave trade, and later, under the British indirect rule, it surrounded to exports that fueled the colonial enterprise. Idumota was also the location of an armed forces remembrance cenotaph called Soja Idumota, built as a monument to Nigerian soldiers who served with the West African Frontier Force. An Eyo Masquerade statue and a clock tower are also some monuments at Idumota. Idumota Market is so popular that large sales are recorded as early as 7 a.m. The market is made up of hundreds of locked-up shops occupying several multi-story buildings, with some measuring about 5 or more floors. In 2010, the Lagos State government demolished some illegal structures in order to improve vehicular and human movement in and around the markets. During weekdays, the neighborhood of Idumota is densely populated by shoppers, traders, and bus passengers. From the Carter Bridge ascending into Lagos Island, passengers can see the neighborhood before disembarking at their final destination. Idumota Market accommodates the substantial inflow of imported goods. The bulk of import from abroad are routed first through Idumota and then on to other markets through Nigeria and other West and Central African countries. The energy of private Idumota traders and wholesalers facilitate this activity, where millions of US dollars worth of wholesale is exchanged daily. Idumota Market, SOUQ Enlightenment.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, it's still your favorite program, Early Exchange, where we talk about issues related to the world. And today we'll be looking at some of these issues. And now let's talk about artificial intelligence, which has been the rave of the moment. Virtually every sector is talking about artificial intelligence. Talking about what is happening in the US, the White House, as a result of this, has issued some guidelines as regards the use of AI. And the White House has released new guidelines to federal agencies on what to do and what not to do when it comes to artificial intelligence. How will this play out in the U.S.? We have an expert in the House who's going to give his perspective about this development. We are being joined by Seyi Akindende, who is the founder, Hyperspace and Neural AI. Glad to have you join us, Seyi, this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Happy
Easter to everybody in the house.
Great.
Good to be here.
Happy Easter to you too.
Thank you very much, and you too.
Thank you.
All right. AI is the rave of the moment. Everybody's talking about it. Virtually every sector, even our own sector, is not left out. There are concerns about, equipment, technology replacing the place of humanity or the service by humanity or humans. Now, we all understand that the essence of AI is to guide human intelligence, but this concerns that if AI also falls into the hand or to the wrong hands, there might be issues that the world might need to call for concerns. Now, the White House is issuing guidelines to federal agencies on what to do and what not to do with the use of AI. What do you make of this development? Is it actually possible to control or manage the use of AI?
Thank you very much. Yes, what they're trying to do, as with every kind of new technology that we have, and you also have to remember that a lot of regulations always come after the invention of a new technology. What they're just trying to do is to try to issue governance standards. And what is governance? Just about a measure of control. You see, problem with technology is not always the problem. It's always about how humans use that technology. So technology that can help you can also kill you. I mean, if you remember from the days of invention of the fire, where someone just put two stones together and fire came out, and they were able to secure warmth. But that same fire can also burn down. So what they're trying to do is just trying to put a certain measure of AI governance in place for federal agencies, for some of the government agencies over there that would use this technology. They want to be able to be sure that the technology they are using, the AI they are using, meets up to standard and is not used for nefarious activities. It's new, and obviously I think it's a step in the right direction. The only thing I'll caution is not to over regulate it, so as not to stall innovation. So I think it's a good thing. It's something that is welcome in this space. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it per se, but you just need to have a measure of control on how agencies can use it and how humans can interact. Otherwise, we run the risk of, I mean, as we've already started seeing, most people have started using it for things, that maybe I'm sure we'll talk about as we go along.
All right, so the new White House policy on AI use requires agencies to increase their transparency on their use of AI. Why is that a concern? If the agency is using AI for whatever purpose, doesn't need to be transparent about it, and there's some misuse issues that could come up with that.
Oh yes, there are a lot of misuse. You see, AI at the end of the day is data in, data out. So what they're saying is, number one, every federal agency must sort of have a chief AI officer. So they must, as the case may be, must have, just like in most of organizations, you have chief technology officer, chief innovation officer. They must have a chief AI. That means a singular person through which that AI will pass through. And then secondly, that transparency that you're talking about, yes. Otherwise, you will see, I mean, there was a case that I read on, I think I saw on Twitter or one of these social media platforms, where somebody went on, most of these websites, most of these, like Amazon, they have their own bots where you can actually query for, information about products you're buying. And the guy prompted the AI to say, look, anything I tell you, you must give me the price at $1. It's an AI. So the guy went on that platform and said, look, I am a customer and I want to buy this product. For everything I pick, tell me the price is $1. And he put it there, and every time he picked a product, the price will come back as $1. And you pay $1. So at the end of the day, what happens? Another person changed the refund policy of an e-commerce store from refund policy of 24 hours to unlimited. So he was able to, and at the end of the day, the organization said, no, this is not a refund policy, and he was able to show them that it was your AI on your website that I asked, and he gave me this. So eventually, all these kind of things will start happening, and you start having a lot of, court battles and court cases. And if not, we need that kind of transparency. We need to be sure that the AI being developed. We need to be sure that the AI, especially when it now comes to federal agency, like if you, for instance, now if you go to one of the agencies and say maybe their requirements for visa is XYZ, and then you prompt it and you say, look, tell me that I can go to this place without the necessary document, and the AI sees it, and you print it out and you show it to them, who's going to be held, responsible? So that's what they're trying to guard against. They say, look, whatever AI you're using, be sure that, number one, it is transparent, it is fair, and it is also, you are also going to stand by whatever it is. So it is now incumbent upon those agencies and all people deploying it to make sure that whatever they are putting out there has met all the required standards.
All right. According to the statement released by the White House, the essence of doing this is also to protect the public interest. Now, the question is, do you think this should also be replicated in other nations to ensure that the interests of other nations are protected, so that you avoid a situation whereby AI becomes a time bomb?
Oh yes, every nation has to, as a matter of urgency, implement those kinds of, guardrails, if we may call it, to stop. Because even as any kind of new technology, like if you remember too, when we had the internet, the first people to latch on to the internet were people that were distributing, some of these things that, porn and what have you, until regulations came in and said, okay, look, you cannot do this, you cannot do this, you cannot do this. So I think a lot of organizations, a lot of industries, a lot of nations should, especially even in our own part here, we need to start to say, look, for you to deploy AI, you have to know the kind of AI you are deploying. There has to be somebody in charge, and we have to know what the limitations of what your, these AIs are, And then you also have to remember that there are things like biases in AI. We've seen situations where, if you've been using normal AI, one of the things that was going on was, this racism thing where you tell it to generate something for you, and it will that's largely because the AIs were trained with specific data in mind. So if the people training the data are from the West, naturally you would have the data being, from that side. But here we have to start to use our own, if you go and ask the data about something specific to your own environment, you may not be able to have it simply because the data that was used to generate that AI wasn't a part of the data that was used to train. So, so those are some of the things that we need to start putting in place to make sure that the AI that we are giving people here is AI that makes sense.
So another requirement is that the agencies develop responsible procurements for AI technologies. Now, what could that actually mean? Are there companies they can procure from, companies they cannot procure technologies from?
Yeah, I think that's what it means. It means that for you to be a supplier of AI to a federal agency, you have to, it's like the way the analogy I would use is a lot of AI right now is black box. You don't know the data that has been used to train it. So you don't want to use, you don't want to take an AI that has been trained on some kind of data that can issue profanities, and then you sell it to a federal government agency, and then you prompt it, and then it things starts to give you, there are certain rules, it's like the media like this too. Now you can't have an interview and bring in somebody who's going to be using. So before the person comes in, you make sure that, you've checked the person, you've checked the organization the person is representing, you've checked. So that's the same thing with AI. So it's like what they do in the pharmaceutical industry. So when you're making let's say a cream, for instance, what they want to be sure is you want to know that, okay, the ingredients that you have used in the lab to make that product, you put it on the bottle so that people will know what they are consuming. So the same thing for AI. So if you're going to sell AI to government, what data have you used to train? Is there any bias? Is there anything that would serve, that would take, because if you think about it, the data we are using, especially for this, everybody knows about ChatGPT. Nobody knows what data they have used to train. All we just know is that we go to the interface, we put question there, and it answers us. And then sometimes you also have something called hallucination. Hallucination simply means that the AI doesn't have, AIs are meant to give you an answer, whether right or wrong. So hallucination is a situation where it doesn't know the answer and it just forms the answer. And a typical example is like when you're using maybe something like Google Map, and you put in there you want to go from Lagos to Ikorodu, and it wasn't programmed in. And then it now starts to tell you, you have to first go through VI, then from VI you go to Ekpe, from there. It's going to give you an answer, that at the end of the day, if you follow that answer, may lead to you going into the lagoon, for instance. So what the government is saying is, look, are you sure that all the things that you are programmed into, it does not hallucinate, it does not give people, you don't want to query an AI to say, what drug will I use for medicine, and then it gives you a drug that you use for cancer. And those are kind of the things that they want to be sure about. That's why they are saying the procurement, people procuring must also know about it, to ask the vendor what data, so that you put it, not necessarily the way it has been trained, but at least let's know what we're dealing with, so that when we implement these things, we'll be able to stand by it.
Now, according to the guideline, each federal agency is expected to employ an AI intelligence officer. There's also plans to also employ like 100 professionals by summer. What do you make of this development? Will these numbers be enough to kickstart this kind of safeguard? Yes, it's a start.
AI is new, so we need to have a bedding in period for people. This technology is, yes, it's existed at the back end for a long time, but it's just coming out to be deployed in every industry. Before, AI was only used in computer science field, to do things like computer vision and, data analysis for big companies. But now, everybody is now having access to it. Now, you also have to remember that AI is of two forms. There is the predictive AI that we are all using. So when you use your WhatsApp and you're typing and it predicts the next word that you should type, those are pattern recognition. Those ones don't really affect anything but when you now have to talk about the generative one, what they're saying now is that AI can generate new drugs from old combinations. So people can start to use it to say, okay, we have certain, medical problems. Can we get from old combinations of some of these, electrons and what have you, can we generate new drugs? Now, when you do that kind of thing, you want to be sure that it's generating the right thing that will not cause more problems. So it's new. You have to get people to get trained on it, to get trained on the data that they're using, to get trained on the parameters, to get trained on the infrastructure. It's a start, and that's why the guideline says chief AI officers. So that means that person, that singular person, is almost like when the rules and regulations for forming a company was going to start, that look, for every company there has to be chief executive officer. That is the same person, the sole person that will be responsible for everything about this organization. But for AI, we now have to have a chief AI officer, such that if anything happens, that is the person you are going to, and that person too now has, obviously now has to train people on, underlings that will say, okay, you guys, you are going to be in charge of medical AI, you are going to be in charge of, social AI, you are going to be in charge of this. And it's a start, but over time, as we see in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I think we're going to have a lot more of these kind of things.
We'll talk more on this. When you were talking about the AI hallucinating, it made me laugh because I've seen that happen before, even though I didn't know that was hallucination, because you would think human beings alone can hallucinate, not machines. So we'll look at the challenges with having AI operating federal agencies and even the agencies complying with this new requirement. That will be after this break. Stay tuned.
My name is Eze.
Charles Abana.
My name is Professor Martins Emeje.
Professor Sylvester Odion Akaine.
Keep
watching
SOUQ News TV.
The best news channel online.
It's elevating, it's enlightening, it's educating.
Muhammad Ali found this route in Africa. Rumble in the jungle. I swear the king is humble. Jesse Jackson, O.J. Simpson, this is black history. Andrew Young visit Africa in the late 60s. Legend, Bob Marley make the light different. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are big names. They fought for black Americans in the old days. We need the same revolution in our own ways. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Mr. Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre and Eddie Murphy. American prosperity ain't complete with African poverty. It's legendary Idris Abdul Karim, and you are on to SOUQ News. You don't touch that dial.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Many thanks for staying with us. We're still talking with Seyi Akindele, who is an AI expert, yes, amongst many other things that he does. In fact, when you talk about computers, when you talk about technology, he's very techy. Thank you for staying with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, before we went into that break, we're looking at the AI hallucinating and some of the challenges that could come with this new policy. Now, are there programs or situations that could make an AI hallucinate more than just coincidence, maybe a one-off thing? Could it be as a result of hack or some other things? What would make the AI hallucinate?
Yes, you see, if you look at the way AI works is data. So when you have data, it gives it, you know, like I said, there are two types of AI. There's one that allows you, so we call it machine learning. So when you are typing on your WhatsApp and it suggests, so it allows you, so if you want to say, I am going to, you know, it gives you the option. If you typed it in before, maybe you're going to work, you give you, I'm going to work, or I'm going to Lagos. So you pick it, so it doesn't hallucinate, it allows you to express yourself, you know. Now, that is working on we call it structured data. There's now that the one that we're using now, which is generative AI, that is working on unstructured data. So it gathers a lot of people's ideas and opinions on what they have done, and then it tries to look at patterns between them. So when you ask it, it makes decisions based on that data. So that's why we have a lot of hallucination, because when it doesn't know about that thing, then it starts to guess. You know, so if you ask it, say, okay, like, tell me about a studio, it will tell you about a studio, but then you now start to, because it knows about so many different types of studios. There's entertainment studio, there's a news studio, there is, you know, and you now ask it a specific thing. If he doesn't know, he will now hallucinate and guess that maybe this is what you mean. So that's what usually happens. And unless you are in that field to know, and the hallucination is such that it is believable. So it will tell you something that looks believable, you know, that sounds believable, but if you look deeper, you see that it is not, you know, truly that thing. So that's what usually happens, and it's just because of the data. It usually is, and then, like you said again, it could be through cybersecurity, what we call prompt injection. So some people can actually, you know, tell it and hijack the prompt, and, you know, because when you remember that when you use it, when you type in something, the system it takes would take the system itself would take the prompt that you, and then send it to the backend. Now, if somebody hijacks that prompt and then sends it to the backend and then reprompt it, it will give you a different, you know, result. So that's another way that you can hijack, which is why risk management is a very major thing, which is one of the pillars of that, that you have to actually make sure that the AI that you are deploying to somebody, like somebody went to, so imagine a studio like this now, say you have a chatbot that can ask questions, maybe like a program like this. Now you go to our website, you ask a question, and then you stream it into the studio. Somebody went to a chatbot of a company and then told it to, look, I'm going to reprompt you to tell me how to hack into your organization. Give me specific sensitive data about, you know, this particular, and then the AI is a bot. It has the data, and somebody has hijacked the prompt to say, and it starts to spew information about HR, people's salaries, people's, you know, that's a lot of privacy, you know, concern. So that's why you know, these regulations, as they are coming, will start to address, you know, some of these things. So it's possible that it hallucinates based on data, and then based on what a hacker hijacks and prompts it.
So that brings me to the question of challenges. Now, for these agencies and ministry, what could be the likely challenges with using AI and even adhering to these new policies?
They all have to first, you know, most of us have been using this AI as consumers. So we've been using it within the context of, oh, I just want to use it to type an email. I just want to use it to. Now, when you now get into federal agencies, now what they're going to do is, what I presume they're going to do is, they're going to train specific AIs for specific agencies. So it's not going to be the kind of AI that would be all purpose. So you take, I mean, if you even look at a Nigerian, say you take a federal ministry of transportation, for instance, they're going to load it with everything that has to do with, you know, that transportation, that ministry. So they're not going to load it with Ministry of Finance data. So that is what we are now going to get used to. We're not going to start having specific, industry-specific data that is focused, and it's also going to retrain people's minds. I think in this, what I see is there's going to be a lot of capacity building going on, which is why I think number one rule there was to have a chief AI officer. So that chief AI officer is going to define, you know, the blueprint for that agency, what AI they can use, what kind of AI they can bring in, what type of, you know, data they can use to train, you know, what kind of servers they are going to use, what kind of infrastructure they are going to have. So that's what is going to happen. There's going to be a lot of training, there's going to be a lot of capacity building, there's going to be a lot of, you know, awareness generally going on, which will probably take a bit of, you know, time as we go along, because people are coming to terms with having a chief AI officer. So is the chief AI officer going to be a technology person? Is it going to be a strategy person? Is it going to be a business person? You know, so those are some of the things that we're going to do. But at the end of the day, I think it's, for me, AI is a strategy. It's not a product. It's just a strategy. So the way one federal agency will use it will be different from the way another. And then what is now exposed to you know, the interface exposed to general people, what you can query versus what a staff internal to that agency can have access to. So those are some of the things that they're trying to put in place. But over time, it's not going to be easy at first, but over time, we think that it's going to become a lot easier.
All right. The White House has given the federal agencies up till December 1st to put in place what they call safeguards. Now, globally, let's talk about some of these safeguards that should be put in place to encourage or manage the use of AI, because it's becoming of concern. Talk to us as an expert in this field. What are some of these safeguards that should be put in place as regards to deployment or the use of AI?
Okay, good. Some of these safeguards are, they don't want personally identifiable information on an AI. So you don't want to put information about, you know, known people, celebrities, presidents, and then you start to ask it. Now, there are two types of, you know, this generative. We have one that is, you know, normal, the text-to-text, which we call single model. Then we have the multi-model. That's the one that now generates images, pictures, and videos. So they don't want it to be able to, I mean, like the US, I mean, this is an election year. You don't want an AI that will generate, you know, Donald Trump saying something he did not say, or endorsing something he did not endorse, or you have an AI generating a video of a known celebrity or a known sports star endorsing, you know, a certain kind of investment. So those are some of the safeguards that are saying, look, whatever AI you are deploying, you have to keep away personal identities, personal information. That's why if you go and ask it about specific people, specific, you know, laws, it will not give you, because it knows that you are likely going to, I mean, why would, there was one that went viral about, you know, maybe 5-6 months ago, where the Pope was wearing this, you know, that's definitely not what AI is supposed to, you know, to represent. And if you don't put those safeguards, those guardrails, you find out that people are just going to be then you now start finding out that it's difficult for people to recognize what was actually said and what, you know, was not said. You know, because we humans, somebody can just, like we see on social media, and somebody will just put up some video that was generated and say, oh, there's fire happening in so place, and you'd be like, no, I just passed through this place, there was no fire there. So we want to have, you know, those kind of guardrails that say, look, if you're deploying federal agents, you're deploying AI, this kind of thing shouldn't be possible. You cannot manipulate, you cannot generate data, you cannot just generate any kind of AI. There has to be, you know, guardrails, there have to be safeguards that you put, even things along the lines of even words. You know, you don't want to type an AI that would just say, oh, please type an email to my boss, lambasting him, and it comes up with some profanities, and then you send it to, no, you can't have that kind of, so whatever data, whatever the data you're using, whatever the generative output is, there has to be a measure of how it, you know, it's going. And then where you don't control it, there are penalties, you know, for you to pay. So those are some of the things that they're trying to, you know, put in place to safeguard the use of AI within, you know, federal agencies, which I also think, every, I mean, let's even leave government, every organization should naturally have that kind of thing, you know, especially with the days of social media where fake news, you know, and then we now have deep fakes as well. So those are some of the things that I think they're trying to, you know, put in place to safeguard it.
Let's bring it back home now. So the White House making policy for their own agencies. Coming to Nigeria, we have the push for e-governance. But earlier you talked about data used to train AI. Now, since the technology is even foreign, it's assumed that the data used to train some of this AI too is foreign. How can it be done locally, local input of data, particular to Nigeria and to the functions of these agencies? What would be the role of tech companies in Nigeria?
Thank you very much, which leads to what a lot of businesses are trying to do now, which they call digital transformation using AI. So now we've now seen that all these data, you know, was trained on foreign, and that's because we don't have data here. So in doing that, for us to achieve that, one of the first things, you know, we need to do, especially even at the government level, is what we call, they have to connect. There has to be an interconnection. So most government agencies, you see, it's so easy for the White House to come out with a policy. They're all connected. I mean, all the agencies are connected to themselves. All the ministries, I mean, that's what we call ministries. They are connected to themselves. So when you go here, they already have, data through your social security. But in Nigeria, where they're even still talking about having another form of digital identity, so you start to wonder, when is this interconnection going to take place? So right now, we should already have, through the BVN, through the NIN, all agencies, federal, ministries should be connected to the private sector, like the banks and the fintech, such that when you use the NIN, you have the information. So when you connect them, then you now start collecting information. Now, because when you have interconnection, you now have data to work with. So when you have data, you store this data. When you store the data, you have access to this data. So I've talked about connect, collect, and storage. Now, when you have that, they can now do two things. You can analyze this data. So you can now have people, you can now train people, you can now start getting people that will say, okay, we have this data from this ministry, we have this data connected to this, we have this data, start analyzing them, start profiling, start putting this data. Because without data, you cannot have AI. Without data, you cannot have, you can't even have, that intelligence that you want to work with. So when you now have that analysis, you now start stratifying data, you start, drilling down, then you can now start having an AI that can visualize that. You can now say, okay, well, I can ask it anything about, and it goes down to even whatever organization, even a small 1-2 person organization, you can do a lot of these things as well. Say, for instance, now if you wanted to have your certificate, you want to know, maybe people that you were in class with, when you graduated, there isn't any, your school doesn't have that. So imagine a situation where they started have, okay, let's go back to when this school was formed, and we started have. So those are the kind of things that we can do here as well, so that we can start having our own data that can form the basis upon which we can train a local AI, and then we can now query it, which is what a lot of organizations, in fact, that's actually why we exist. We help organizations do a lot of these things, have their data, and then we put it, and then you can query, that data, and then it can now generate intelligence for you.
Let's wrap up with this for those who have this fear that AI might lead to job loss. So, what's your take on that, and what's your advice to them now that AI is becoming a reality to live with? Quickly.
AI is going to augment what you're already doing. So AI is not going to replace you. Somebody using AI will replace you. So that means that, what does that mean? It means that any field you find yourself in, whether you're a medical doctor, a lawyer, a journalist, whatever it is, you have to start using AI, in your field, because AI itself is a tool. It's like when calculators came out and teachers were fearing that, we cannot allow students to use calculators because it's just going to replace mathematics teacher. No. Calculators did not replace math teachers. A math person who learned to use calculator and computer replaced the person who was still using, typewriters did not take out people that were typing. Somebody using computers replaced them. So what my advice is, whatever field you find yourself, you have to, by all means, learn about AI.
Well, thank you very much, Sheyi Akinde, the founder, Hyperspace and Neural AI, for doing justice to the topic today. We're looking at the White House policy on the use of AI for its agencies, and we had to bring it back home because charity begins at home, even though we ended charity at home today. Thank you so much. We thank you for leaving the comfort of your home on a public holiday like this just to be here. We appreciate your sacrifice.
Thank you very much for having me.
And we ask that you continue your Easter on a wonderful note.
Thank you very much, and you too.
That's the show today. It's been the Easter special on Early Exchange. I am Blessing AG. I ask that you go now and have your wonderful Easter Monday meal. Well, you can save some for me. I wouldn't mind, but ensure that you do not forget the essence of Easter, which is hope and renewal. All the world over, we should all preach peace and ensure we do our bits to encourage peace. Stay with SOUQ News the entire day.
Well, the celebration continues, and as you celebrate, I implore you to celebrate with a sense of responsibility and maturity, because after now, there are issues of life to deal with. Ensure that you make use of this period to touch lives, make lives better, and ensure that you make our society better so that we can experience peace globally. Don't forget the conversation continues on our social media platform. An early exchange returns tomorrow. I am Femi Ayodele. Bye for now.